Welcome back everybody to Skylander Smash. Today we're covering the hardened crystallized behemoth himself, Prism Break. A Skylander of the Earth element, Prism Break dispatches his enemies by firing radiant beams of energy from his gem hands and summoning large iridescent crystal shards to assist him in battle. Before writing this script, I predicted that regarding his basic moves, his playstyle will be very similar to Donkey Kong and Smash. Will that prove to be true? Keep watching to find out. But before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. To start, Prism Break has been given the honor of being the first Skylander to be a heavyweight Smash fighter, which makes sense given that he is a golem made of rocks and crystals after all. Regarding his traits, I would say that Prism Break is powerful but slow. While his attacks may be punishing, his speed is relatively sluggish, and some of his attacks may have a slow startup as well. Some of Prism Break's attacks may also grant him super armor during them, which is an effect that prevents flinching and knockback. With all that out of the way, let's finally move on to the actual moves themselves. Now, creating these moves may be trickier than expected, given that the most obvious detail about Prism Break is him having gems for hands, which makes brainstorming ideas for basic moves a little more complicated, especially when he never physically attacks with his hands in the main games. But overall, I'm pretty confident with everything I have, mostly. As always, let's start with the neutral attack, which is a two-stage standard jab. The move itself is two alternating hooks, an attack shared with the heavyweight fighter Rob. Additionally, he may also be a good source of inspiration for Prism Break's moves, since his arms are unconventional for a Smash fighter to have, much like Prism Break's. And to prove my point, as we move on to the tilts, the forward tilt is also inspired by Rob's, which is basically a stronger hook with more range. The last two tilts are inspired by another heavyweight, King K. Rool. Up tilt is a single uppercut, while down tilt is a single stomp from one of his feet. This attack can also bury players in the ground, immobilizing them. Next is the dash attack, where he swings both of his arms downward, clubbing players, much like Rob. Smash attacks are up next. One thing to mention, Prism Break's hands are able to deal electric damage with some of his smash attacks, including the one I'm about to mention right now. Prism Break may also be granted super armor during these attacks. Forward smash functions almost identically to Bowser Jr.'s. Instead of drilling the opponent, Prism Break releases energy beams from his hands which converge on one point, electrocuting players in range. Up smash is basically the same attack, just aimed upwards. It's very similar to Mega Man's up smash. Down smash, however, is quite different. Prism Break stomps the ground, which causes crystals on either side of him to erupt, damaging nearby players. The crystals are inspired by the intro animation in his Giants trailer. Now for the aerials, first is the Nair, which is Prism Break spinning around with his arms outstretched to attack players, similar to Donkey Kong. Forward air is a downward swing of Prism Break's arms, similar to Rob's. Back air is a bit of a weird one, but also the only one that I thought was the right fit. Prism Break turns around and uses one of his arms to punch downward, like King K. Rool's back air. Lastly, both up and down air are also parroting DKs, where the up air is a overarching headbutt, and the down air being a stomp with one leg. Finishing off the basic moves, we have, of course, the grab, pummel, and throws. Finally, we've arrived at our first unique grab, but it's nothing too abstract, as Prism Break just clutches his opponents with both of his gem hands. Pummel is simply a headbutt attack. Next, forward and back air are all basically him tossing his opponent with his hands in the respective direction. How he does it though is a bit different, as he uses one hand for his forward throw and both hands for his back throw. Up throw is similar to Rob's, where he goes into the air and slams his target on the ground. Obviously, it wouldn't be exactly like Rob's, since Rob uses thrusters to hover in the air. Instead, Prism Break simply leaps upward and slams the player down, so the execution stays the same. Finally, down throw is him slamming his opponent deep in the ground, burying them. Again, this is taken from King K. Rool. And to quickly cap this off, edge attack is just a quote-unquote fist attack from one of his hands. Now for the good stuff, the specials. As usual, the neutral special is first, which is Prism Break's primary attack, Energy Beam, where he fires said beam at players from both of his hands. This attack continuously damages players, however, it doesn't cause players to flinch, otherwise it would be very broken, constantly trapping them in a damage loop of sorts. This ability is more so for dealing damage, like Fox's Blaster. In addition to that, it also synergizes well with the next ability, his side special, where he summons crystal shards at a distance, damaging players on impact. Side note, in the first game, Prism Break summons shards from the ground, but in later games, he has them rain from the sky. So in Smash, I'll just have the shards come from the sky for the sake of simplicity. How the move functions is much like specials like Greninja's Shadow Sneak, where the distance between Prism Break and the crystal's destination increases while the special move button is held, and when released, the crystal plummets towards the ground. In addition, like I mentioned before, this move has an additional effect when used in conjunction with the energy beam. Whenever the beam makes contact with a crystal, the beam splits into multiple beams aimed in different directions. In Smash, those directions are limited to the 4 cardinal directions. Some other things to note, multiple crystals can be present on the stage. I would say around 2 to 3, in which case the oldest one will disintegrate when another is summoned. Crystals will also disintegrate on their own after a while. Beams refracted from crystals can refract with other crystals. And finally, crystals can be destroyed by both Prism Break and his opponents. Although when attacked, the crystals release gem shrapnel in random directions that damage players, also causing them to flinch. This is referencing Prism Break's WoW power from Swap Force, Crystal Comrade. Next is the up special / recovery, which was the hardest special move to find ideas for personally. To be frank, I was only able to come up with one idea, which was simply a super jump, similar to King DDD's. I honestly don't know if there are any other possibilities, so maybe you guys could give me some ideas in the comments below. Lastly, we have the down special, Crystal Eruption, where Prism Break slams the ground, causing a ring of crystals to erupt around him, damaging nearby players. In the main games, Prism Break stays in one spot when using Crystal Eruption, but in Smash, I would say it's more like Yoshi's down special, Yoshi Bomb. More specifically, when used on the ground, Prism Break leaps forward a small distance before dropping down and using the ability. And in the air, he just plummets straight towards the ground. I also considered delegating this ability to his down smash, but then I couldn't think of another possible down special. So again, leave your ideas in the comments. Last but not least is the final smash, which is actually a mostly original concept with some elements inspired from both Smash and Skylanders. Once activated, Prism Break summons a large crystal from the ground, trapping players in range. Prism Break then leaps a small distance away from the crystal and fires a large powerful beam towards it, continuously damaging the players trapped inside. The beam also damages outside players that are caught in the crosshairs of the beam. After some time, the crystal explodes, sending shrapnel everywhere, which, surprise, can also cause damage. As for the trapped opponents, if any of them have a damage percentage over 100%, they are instantly KO'd, sharing the same mechanic with Zelda's Final Smash. Otherwise, they are simply sent flying. I'm pretty proud of this Final Smash. The only thing I'm unsure of is, despite me saying players, I'm not sure if it should trap only one player or several of them whenever it's used. All that's left are the animations and cosmetics, which, unlike with the Flameslinger video, while most of my ideas are somewhat original, I'm not as confident on these ones as I was last time. For starters, Prism Break's on-screen appearance is just simply him dropping from the sky before readying himself for battle, which is similar to King K. Rool's intro. Once again, I couldn't really think of anything else, but I've already said it twice now, you know what I'm gonna say. Next are the taunts. First one is him stomping the ground before grunting, both referencing his Giants trailer and one of King K. Rool's taunts. Next is him performing a series of punches, like one of Little Mac's taunts, but probably a bit slower, and the last taunt is him flexing his arms in a bodybuilder fashion, which doesn't reference anything in Smash or Skylanders. Instead, I was inspired by this gif of Larry the Lobster. Next is the crowd cheer, which, regarding this aspect, I have something I need to point out. All of the crowd cheers I've made so far have all been just basic chants of the Skylanders name, which is disappointing, seeing as there are plenty of creative cheers in Smash, like We Like Ike for Ike, or I Choose You for Pokemon Trainer. And that's when I remembered that every Skylander has a signature catchphrase. Therefore, I could use that as the crowd cheer. For example, Bill Grunts could now be Fear the Fish, Fear the Fish, Fear the Fish. Or Trigger Happy's could be No Gold, No Glory, No Gold, No Glory, followed by a cliche 5 claps. And as luck would have it, it works with Prism Breaks. The beam is supreme, the beam is supreme, the beam is supreme. Last up, as always, are the victory poses. First one is Prism Break performing his Crystal Eruption before posing, similar to one of DK's poses. Prism Break even backflips in the same way. Next is based on his animation in his Giants trailer. Funnily enough, the pose would be shot somewhat in reverse. The camera focused on his stomps before freeze framing on his entire figure. And the last pose starts with him firing his energy beam from both of his hands before posing, referencing his trailer from the first game. All that's left are the costumes, which, like Flameslinger, Prism Break has very few. And even regarding that, these are mainly just recolors of the crystals on his body. Now the first recolor is a little confusing, because in all the official art for Prism Break, his crystals are colored green, but in Spyro's Adventure, his crystals are colored blue. So just to avoid making things complicated, the green one is the default costume, and the blue one is the first alternate costume. Next is Prism Break with yellow crystals, referencing the Prismancer upgrade path, where his crystals change to said color. Then there's the variant with red crystals, referencing the last official recolor, his counterpart from Swap Force, Hyper Beam Prism Break. The next two costumes are designs that weren't officially classified as counterparts, just unique colorings of the figures. I did see a few of those for previous Skylanders, but chose to leave them out, since 99% of them were just painting the entire figure with colors like gold or chrome. Fortunately, That wasn't the case for these two, since the crystals were not painted over. The two costumes both changed the color of Prism Break's rocky complexion. The first being White Flocked Prism Break, obviously changing it to white, and Golden Prism Break, changing it to gold. The last two costumes are the ones I've made, which reference specific details from Skylanders. The first is a variant with purple crystals, referencing the crystal golem enemy from Giants, whose crystals are the same color. And finally, this last one is a bit out of left field. It's Prism Break, but with grass growing on its skin, referencing the stone golem boss from Spyro's Adventure. And that's it for Prism Break. If you stuck around till the end, I really appreciate it. The next Skylander I'm covering is part of the last element we haven't gotten to yet. Until then, I'll see all you marvelous people soon.